Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge, a chance for us to do something a little different this season. Rather than watch a movie 1 minute at a time, we're actually talking to folks and learning a little bit about their lives 1 moment at a time. I'm your host, as you heard at the intro, Alan Sanders, and joining me once again, my good bud, Walt Murray. Walt, how you doing?
Hey buddy, I'm doing great.
So usually I kind of like just jump in, but I decided, you know what, this week I want you to start. What's been going on? Anything happening since the last time we talked to an astronaut?
Well, I've decided to change careers, Alan. I think I'm going to space.
Wait, really?
Yes, I'm going to go on as a stowaway because there's no way I would ever make it as an astronaut. So I'm hiding aboard the next mission.
You're fully qualified to be a stowaway, not a real astronaut, though.
No, I could not be a real astronaut. So my only question is, do you think that they have hamburgers and hash browns in space?
You know what? I can't believe last week we didn't even ask, okay, so what do you get on the space station? If you're on the International Space Station, what's your dietary option?
Well, you know why I didn't ask that?
Why?
Because I didn't want to be disappointed. If he didn't say Tang, I was going to be heartbroken. So it was almost like one of those, you have to ask it, but I can't ask it. I can't bring myself to finding out that Tang is not part of the astronaut's diet.
Yeah, I don't even think they make Tang anymore.
Oh no, they do. I bought some about a year ago.
Do they really?
Yes. Yeah, you get it in the powdered sugar aisle at your favorite grocery store. But no, yeah, it's still out there. You can actually order it on Amazon.
OMG.
Yeah, and it's still just as good, man. I made a big vat of it, and it was awesome.
Really? Okay.
Little
I almost
moonshine in
feel
it.
compelled to go look for some just to see if I can even remember what it tastes like.
It's actually good. You know, some of that stuff from our childhood you taste now, and it just isn't great. But Tang will not disappoint. It holds up.
All right, I'll take your word for it because I thought they were defunct.
No, I bought it on a whim. I can't remember who makes it. General Mills or somebody that is still around. I wonder if it's like Tang.com.
Tang. Careful. Spell that correctly.
Tang drink mix is, it's out there on Wikipedia. It was invented in 1957. So, you can still get it. And in fact, let's see, on Amazon.com, you can get a 2-pack, makes 22 quarts or 72 ounces, and it is $22.66.
Huh. All right.
So, so Tang is still out there, my friend.
Wow. Okay. I stand corrected. I thought they were out of business, but now I almost feel like I should go order some.
Maybe I could get you some for your Christmas present.
Oh, that would be cool. Can you add some gummy bears to that?
I'll be happy to.
That's what we call Happy Tang.
Huh, let's see. Tang with gummy bears and a shot of moonshine. What would we call that?
That's what we call Very Happy Tang.
That's what we call what he died from.
But he had a smile on his face.
The cause of death was this concoction. A Tang overdose.
Tang. It's a bit tangy.
So leave it to our podcast to take one of the great interviews of all time, and we end up spending 10 minutes on Tang.
I wonder if you put vodka in it, does the Tang have an extra kick?
Well, I do have to say I tried it with bourbon, and that's a good mix. And I did try it with a little bit of vodka, and that was good.
I could do that. It'd be like sort of a astronaut's version of a screwdriver.
Yeah, it's what the astronauts drink when they get home.
Yeah, you've got a real screwdriver is orange juice and vodka, but an astronaut screwdriver is Tang and vodka.
Right. That'd be like kind of the Sears Craftsman version of the screwdriver.
Okay.
It's solid. It works. It'll never let you down, but it's not as expensive.
Lifetime refund.
Lifetime refund. They'll make another one for you if you're not happy.
I can't believe we're talking about Tang. There's people probably around the world going, the f*** is Tang?
People are literally listening to the show right now going, the only reason I'm listening is I can't believe I'm hearing this.
No, they're saying the only reason I'm listening is I can't find my unsubscribe button.
Right. How do I turn this off?
Where do I go to
Help
get
me.
rid of? How do I get out of this chicken shit outfit?
I changed my mind. Podcasts are the worst.
I can't believe I was convinced to follow these guys.
Right now, some guy's trying to find our call-in number so he can say, I thought I was listening to an interview with some celebrity, and instead it's like two idiots sitting at a bar talking.
It's almost like I'm just eavesdropping on two morons at a bar.
Well, folks, that is the Wilder Ride. That's what we're all about.
Hey, look, I just looked this up. You get your 100% daily value of vitamin C if you just drink one drink of Tang.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Tang delivers, man. The astronauts use it for a reason. I mean, that's good stuff. Vitamin C, maltodextrosorphan, calcium phosphate. It's got all your important stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at sugar, fructose, citric acid, ascorbic acid. That's your vitamin C, by the way.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. So
don't forget, you got to have your yellow dye number 5 and number 6 to give it that color.
Well, did you notice on the label it says citric acid provides tartness? Because you can't go without your daily tartness, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that's why it's called Tang.
That's
otherwise,
true.
it'd be called Mellow.
And this thing makes 22 quarts. That's a lot of Tang.
It's a lot of Tang. Now you know
we're morons.
you put the word poo in front of it, changes its meaning altogether.
God.
Totally different. Same kind of tartness.
Or
but...
Wu, the Wu-Tang Clan.
There's a clan right there.
There you go. Oh, we're
I'm
morons.
so done. I must be tired. We haven't even gotten to our guest yet.
I'll tell you what, why don't we bring our guest on in?
Okay.
See if she can salvage this disaster.
We didn't even talk about my week, but you know what?
I think we did. I think we've covered it.
I don't even give a shit. I'm just ready. I'm ready to turn it over to someone else. Let them talk for a little bit. All right, enough of us chatting, Walt. Let's go ahead and bring to the stage. Everyone in the audience, please put your hands together for the wonderful, the one, the only MalaniKai. MalaniKai, welcome to our listeners' lounge. How are you?
I'm doing well. I heard 2 claps, so I was waiting to hear a lot more, but that's okay.
Oh, you will hear a lot more when you listen.
You'll get a lot in post.
We bring our audience way down because they're so loud. I mean, they're out of control.
Right. I've heard the reputation precedes this interview. I got you.
Yeah, I have no doubt that our reputation precedes us.
Well, this is a chance for me to bring in yet another one of the talents that I've had a chance to stumble across in my career in radio. I had a chance to listen to her a lot, filling in sometimes with Tim Andrews, our good buddy from Radio Labyrinth and from WSB's The Von Hessler Doctrine. And then lately, in the last several months, on a show, a collaboration of voices that kind of grew together organically called Word on the Street. So before we get to any of that, and we will touch on all of it as we go along, MalaniKai, first and foremost, when did you first think radio, or at least performance, or something to do in front of a microphone was going to be a career calling for you?
When I first started talking when I was 2 years old, I pretty much knew. No, seriously. I kind of knew I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to talk. I wanted to convince people. I wanted to sway people. I wanted to do drama in the courtroom. And I can't come from a very religious background. And by that, I mean, I'll go a step deeper, very charismatic. And at that time, the people we surrounded ourselves with said, hey, well, the rapture is going to come. Jesus is going to come. So you're not going to have time to go and do 8 years to study to be an attorney. So I said, oh, I'm not going to be here? No.
Oh, wow.
You're not going to be around.
Yeah. So you and I grew up around some of the same stuff.
Yes. Yes. And they meant well. And I would not change anything about my upbringing. My father was a pastor, but untraditionally, he did not grow up in the church. He was a street guy. And when he made his conversion to Christ, it was authentic. So when he was being led around, trying to find his way in different organizations, I won't name them, but we stumbled upon a few. Now he's totally independent. But at that time, Jesus was coming. And really, I mean, there's really no need to go to college. So I didn't really think radio. I did a lot of acting. My father, after he started his church, he started a school. And he started the school because he had us in private school, Christian school, and they only went up to a certain grade. And he did not want to put us in public school, and he was not going to put us in Catholic school. So he started his own school. And back then, it was kind of like a homeschool for the people who went to his church and us. And from that time, I was waiting for Jesus to come and had no aspirations of college or didn't think about a career, except for the few times we were able to watch television and I'd see episodes of Perry Mason. And I thought that was dramatic. Wanted to do that. And that got shot down. And then I started playing sports. And it really wasn't until my senior year where I knew I used to sit around. My father brought us a little recorder, and I used to try to call the games on television with the announcers. So he would say, turn it down and you just call the games. So that's kind of how I really got started, just talking to nobody, making up stuff about every sport. And I was playing basketball at that time. So here I go, my senior year. Jesus is not here, guys. He's not here.
What is?
So
At
now
what
you
point do
got
you go?
decisions to make.
Is he late? Did we get the day wrong? Is it a leap year?
Right. So,
Did I get missed?
well, my parents were still there, so I assumed I didn't get missed. So here we go, senior year. I'm getting all of these offers from every college in the country. I'm from upstate New York, small town, Troy, New York, outside of the capital, Albany. Grew up on a farm, went to my father's church, went to my father's small homeschool kind of type school. And so we really didn't play for the little Christian school, really didn't get any exposure. So when I'm getting calls from Pat Summit in Tennessee, and we didn't watch, women's sports wasn't on. So I didn't watch women's sports. So I didn't know who all these people were. We're getting calls from everywhere around the country, from Stanford, saying, hey, she can come here for free. And my dad was like, okay, well, I guess she can go to college while Jesus is delaying his return. So he said, well, what do you want to study? And I said, communications. And at that time, so that's really when I realized I could go to college. I knew I wanted to study production and broadcast and didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Thought it was going to be more in sports, play-by-play, color commentary. And that's really how I got into it.
Now, you did play some sports, though, yourself, even though you didn't have it on television.
I did. I went to, I ended up choosing Syracuse University because at that time, I'm not sure if they still are, Newhouse School of Communications was #1 in the country. And I remember being the weirdest girl probably on a recruiting trip because I would go there and I would go to all these schools for my visits, and I did not understand this world. Nobody from my father's school had ever gone on to play sports in college or anything, let alone high Division I athletics. So I didn't know that it was business. So I didn't understand when I'm going to visit, they're taking me to the athletic department and they're showing me the arena and they're showing me the team and they're introducing me to the players and they're asking, do you have any questions? And I'm thinking, I have no questions about this. And so then when they took me over to the academic side, then I started asking, what's your communications program like? What do you have, a radio program? Do you have a studio? Do you have a television program? And they thought, you don't have any questions about basketball? Like, is there any? But now I know because I coach, but the basic questions about, do you see me playing in your program? What offense do you play? How many people are in my position? Didn't ask any of that because I didn't know it. And I ended up at my first college stint was at Syracuse University.
So it had to have been huge culture shock for you going from that small town and that environment and landing at Syracuse University. I mean, just having people from all over the world and every different kind of religion and no religion, that had to be quite a shock for you.
Let me tell you something. We did something called, at my father's school, called ACE, Accelerated Christian Education. There was actually a system where you had teachers in the classroom, but you did these workbooks, probably that a lot of homeschool kids are doing now, but they're called PACEs. And you could go at your own pace. You did your work. There was never an instructor in there. You did your work. If you got something wrong and you needed an answer, the teacher could help, but we did not have teacher instruction. So, and you didn't have to wait for the class. If you finished if you finished 9th grade and before everybody else, then you went on to 10th grade. So by the time I got to Syracuse, there were probably average 10 people in my class. And we sat at office cubicles, they called dividers. So we sat at these dividers, these cubicles. We did our work in our head. If we needed help, we raised our hand. That was my academic life, and I was very, very good at it. I get to Syracuse, my first class. First off, it's startling because I'm waiting in line. I'm looking forward to this experience. There are thousands of people on campus. I don't know where my parents went. I think they went to go shop for the dorm room. I see lines. I don't even know what line. I was very naive. I don't know what line I was standing in, but I saw it on television. People had book bags. You stand in line, you pick out your classes. I don't know what I was doing, but
so it's like that scene from Revenge of the Nerds where hundreds of people are packed in there.
Exactly. So I'm in line for probably like an hour and a half. I keep stepping up. I don't know what I'm doing. One of my teammates sees me. 2 of them see me. They were like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to get my classes and I guess my meal card." I didn't know any. They started laughing. They said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No." And they laughed at me. They were like, "Come on." They were seniors. "Come with us." I said, "But I'm going to lose my place in line." They were like, "No, you don't do this. You don't do this." We walked down to the Carrier Dome where all the athletes, the football players, the basketball players, Syracuse basketball was top notch at that time as well. The football program was okay, but all the athletes were there, and there they proceeded to hand me a schedule. I said, "Oh, what's this? This is your classes." But I did not pick these classes. They're like, "It doesn't work." "We know you didn't pick these classes." And I looked, this is the God's honest truth, guys. I looked down. I'm going to tell you 3 courses that I saw, and I thought I was going crazy. How to Study 101 was 3 credits. Was 3 credits. And I maybe saw basket weaving on there was 3 credits. I was like, oh. So I was like, I don't need this. No, I said, guys, I don't need all of this. I'm like, and they're like, yes, you do. And so that it was talking about culture shock. Culture shock. My first class, I walk in, there are 300 people sitting in what looks like a movie theater to me. Everybody's talking and the teacher's up front and nobody's paying the teacher any attention. And the teacher's writing and people are talking and laughing and smiling, getting up. And I said, what is this thing? How are we going to learn anything? Yeah, I was naive. I was very
Wow.
Well, I would guess a lot of our modern typical homeschoolers today would probably feel something similar when you've been just raised to think, I can go at my own pace. I'm expected to perform. I need to do something, worthwhile. And then someone comes along and goes, no, don't worry. We got other designs for you. You don't really have to push yourself. It probably feels weird.
It was weird, but the weirder part was the reason I picked Syracuse out because, again, Newhouse School of Communications was number one. I would not even I didn't know who Pat Summitt was in Tennessee, one of the legendary women's basketball coaches of all time, probably the greatest. I wouldn't even talk to the lady. I mean, I didn't know women's basketball. There were visits I did not go on because they did not have a number one communications program. So that's how I ended up at Syracuse. The only reason I didn't care about basketball, it was a means to an end. I didn't know anything about overseas. There was no WNBA. So it was a means to get my education paid for and to go on and work in radio and television. Shortly thereafter, after I signed my contract to play, they let me know that I could not get into Newhouse School of Communications. I had to find another major. And this is when I realized at 17 that I was in a business. The coach looked me in my eyes, the same coach that recruited me, prayed with my father, cried, please, we need her, beg, 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 anything, Pastor Massey, to have her here. We don't love God like you do, but we'll make sure she gets to church. We'll make sure they did everything.
They push all the right buttons.
Exactly. She looks at me and she says, you're going to have to pick another major because that major is going to take away from basketball. I thought, huh? I said, I came here because you said this is what I wanted to study. I was crushed. I didn't care that maybe I could start. I was going to be playing at that time. Syracuse was in the Big East. I didn't care about all that. Playing in a big stadium. I knew nothing about that. I knew that this lady just crushed my dreams. And my time at Syracuse, I won't take it back because I learned a lot. Pretty miserable simply because I didn't know it was a business. And then secondly, I didn't know who these coaches were. They turned into monsters. The same coaches that recruited me, that sat in my parents' home, that hung out with us, that laughed and smiled. They treated us like we were, can I say the S word? Yes, slaves, like black and white slaves, all color slaves. They treated us, they cussed us out. And I'm thinking, my gosh, my dad was my coach at his school. So he wasn't soft, but he didn't curse us out. He didn't call us every name in the book. And his way of motivation wasn't degrading us. We were degraded. And I never saw that before in my life. I'm thinking, why are you calling me those names that are bad names? I didn't do anything. I just didn't make my time in the mile, but I tried. So it was an interesting experience.
Wow. And that's kind of when you realize that even though you are a basketball player and kind of a celebrity at some level, you're still a commodity to the school. You're there to bring in revenue.
Absolutely. I didn't know any of that. You're absolutely right. It's when I understood the business of it. And in hindsight now, talking to my father as well, he knew a little bit, even though he knew how good I was. And the only way, when he told me, I remember he said, okay, I narrowed it down to 5 schools. He said, they're going to ask you, what is it going to take to get you here? He said, tell them you want your sister to come. My sister was a year older. My dad was a smart business guy too. She was a year older. He told her to go to community college because he probably was a little skeptical about me going to college or either one of us going to college by ourselves after being so sheltered. He made her go to community college and told her she was going to go to college with me for free. So in order to get me at the school, they had to take my sister. Now, you got to understand, you're talking about the 90s. Women's basketball wasn't that big. I'm kind of telling you how good I was, okay? Women's basketball wasn't that good that you can barter and say, you got to take her. And my sister was probably a Division III player. She wasn't a Division II player. Could have been if she applied herself, but she didn't really like basketball. My father just wanted her there. And I was that good that every school said, we'll take her. And my dad said, and you have to give up one of the basketball scholarships. Because I think Rutgers or one of those schools said, oh, we'll give her academic. He said, no, because he wanted her to travel with me. He knew the culture of women's basketball, and they did it. So that part of it, that business deal of it, my father really worked out because my sister, who hated basketball, ends up on a high Division I team. And she doesn't even play. I mean, she can play a little bit if she wants to, but she was a Division 10 player, to be honest with you. So it's a business.
But this also shows that you were such a talent they wanted. They were willing to give up one of their scholarship positions on a player that they planned to basically bench the whole season.
This is pretty much true. I did average 1 year at my father's school 50 points a game. I know, clap. Is the audience, do I hear them?
Yes, they just went bananas. Well, I was going to say
they all just fainted.
well, one of the guys I work with, his son is being recruited, and so I've learned a lot about that whole process and everything. And I was going to say, to come out of a school like that in a town like that, to get recruited at Division I, you had to be shooting the lights out.
I was
at that school.
I was, and we didn't really even have how we started. I didn't touch a basketball until I was 13. 12. My father sent us away to one of those Christian Scroon Lake, one of the Word of Life camp, and it's the first time I ever saw a basketball. The school was in Troy, New York, my father's school, but we lived on a little farm outside, which shocks people now that I'm in Atlanta and I say I grew up on a farm. They're like, "You're from New York." I'm like, "Yeah, but New York is
not the city."
The other in New York.
By the way, my wife has this problem all the time because she grew up in the area of the Syracuse area, loved the Qs, still is an Orange follower. Every NCAA tournament, except this year, we're always glued to watching basketball. Wow. And she hated it because she grew up on a farm with horses and having to get up early and do all this stuff. And people say, "Where are you from?" She goes, "I'm from New York." "Oh, like the big city?" Like, no. It's like, no, New York State's huge compared to the city.
Exactly. I grew up, same thing. She had to do chores before she went to school. Same here. I had to do chores. Like 4 a.m. We're collecting chicken eggs. We're milking the cows. And I don't even know how we ended up on a farm. One moment we were in, Troy's not a big city. Again, it's about 5 minutes from the capital, Albany. Little small city. But 1 minute we're living in Troy in the projects, Martin Luther King. It wasn't it was low income housing. Then it wasn't the projects. The projects are made into the projects. But when we were living there, it was low income housing. And then the next day I wake up and we're on a farm. And to this day, it's hilarious how my father got this farm. And I said, "Dad, you just threw us on a farm. We knew nothing. It's not like you had the internet. He would go to auctions and get horses and we did chores." So I'm with your wife. So she didn't like the farm or she did?
Oh, no, she did, but just growing up. Well, do you ever like it when you're the kid doing it? It's looking back. She's got fond memories.
That is awesome. That's awesome. And she's in, do you got either of you doing any farming now?
You know what? We do some vegetable gardening pretty much every year. We love doing that, but we do not have, I would love to at some point to find a place maybe even further out in the country. Because I know she loved riding horses her whole life until she moved to initially North Carolina and then to Georgia. Always had horses in her family and then hasn't had them for the last 20 years because of where she's lived. And I've always thought it'd be kind of cool to get a couple of horses again. I know they're expensive and it's a lot but I'm like, hey, our kids are all grown up now. Our youngest one just is a freshman in college, so technically, although we are technically, although the trend, they do seem to want to come back, and we're like, no. You don't want them back. So
that's why you move into like a Unabomber type cabin with one room. It's like, sorry.
Well, MalaniKai, you might find this humorous. That was the plan for my wife and I all the way up until my youngest was getting close to going to college, and it hit my wife. I like having the bigger home with all the rooms, so now we can be the house all the girls come home to for Christmas. I was like, wait a minute, what happened to the idea of selling the house?
Listen, my parents got rid of, once we got out, they literally, how like you said, you plan it and it happens. My parents did it. We said, wait a second, you guys are really, they're like, yeah, you guys will get a hotel when you come. We'll figure it out. You'll figure something out. You can be here.
Yeah. Some parents, it's like, hey, thanks for coming. Some parents, it's like, thanks for leaving.
Right, exactly. So yeah, upstate New York is pretty cool. And like I said, that experience there opened my eyes to a lot. I would not change anything about it, but I could not get into the program. So I ended up leaving. I'll just warn you guys right now, probably one of the few people you will ever meet that played for on a full scholarship 3 Division I colleges or universities. Played for full scholarship.
Really?
Yes, and it's very rare. And so I transfer out of there. We call all the schools back that were recruiting everybody. Yes, come. Again, same package deal. You got to take her sister. Everybody says yes. You have to sit a year when you transfer division. I just wanted to study my major. So we call all the schools back. I'm in New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey, for a big tournament. I'm there for the high Division I schools that have these great communications programs, but it's at a small school. It's called St. Peter's College. And I'm there. Look, I never heard of this college, but I'm there for the other schools to talk to their coaches, the bid to get me. And the coach from the host school, St. Peter's, sees me, asks somebody where's her father. I've been trying to recruit her and he's never returned my calls. He talks to my dad. She can come here. My dad laughed. I mean, it was almost like a high school gym. But it was really no campus. Jersey City was not really good. I mean, we have Georgia State in the city here in Atlanta. Jersey City was whack. It was crazy. So, I mean, we thought we were going to lose our lives just walking into the gym. So my dad thought it was hilarious. And he said, no, Coach Cornelli, she's not going to talk to you. She said she's going to go to, and he said, what didn't she like about Syracuse? And my father told him the things I didn't like about Syracuse, about the conditioning. He said, she won't write it down. We won't do anything she didn't like at Syracuse.
Oh my God.
But he came to me with it. And you have to understand, at Syracuse, I played basketball since I was 13, never played mostly all the games, never sat out, never had a break. When we got to always from the time I discovered basketball, had a basketball in my hand, whether I was at a hoop, whether I was just throwing it up in the air, whether I was dribbling outside. From the moment I touched the basketball up until I went to Syracuse, I had a basketball in my hand. I didn't know there was this whole thing. Over the summer, they sent me a thick book of a workout. You got to run, you have to lift. We didn't have a weight room. Run what? I can play a whole game. So my first month at Syracuse was a disaster. We didn't touch a ball. We were working out with the football team. We were lifting. I never lifted a weight in my life. They were screaming and cussing and yelling. I was like, put me on a basketball court. I'm better than everybody. What is all of this for? And so my dad told him all the things I didn't like. He wrote it down. He said, if she comes here, we won't do any of that. They can just play pickup for preseason. And my father laughed and he gave it to me. He didn't know how traumatized I was by Syracuse. I ended up in the hospital one time at Syracuse because you know how they're yelling at you, push it, you can go harder. I was going the fastest I could go. And they're yelling and screaming and cussing you out. And I'm going around the track. I was sick, but I was not going to give up. And anyway, my sister goes and calls my dad. And she says, you need to get here. She's really sick. She keeps going to practice. They're yelling at her. She's not going to give up. My dad sneaks into the Carrier Dome, or maybe we're in the Manley Center practicing, and not practicing, just running on the track, running nonstop. Everybody's vomiting, the whole nine. How you know your child. He knows I'm sick. He grabs me, tells him he's taking me to the hospital. I ended up in the hospital for a week. They were like, it was a good thing you came because she almost collapsed. It started with food poisoning, so I had a lot of trauma about preseason. So my father didn't know it was that bad for me. When he came to me and said, I didn't ask, only thing I asked about the program. St. Peter's did not have a communications program. So I said, no can do. Because he said, are you really considering it? I said, if he says we don't have to do blah, 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 this, that, or the other. Yes, I am, Dad. It was very traumatic to come from Redemption Christian Academy, your school, to a big program like Syracuse, not prepared like that. And the coach said, listen, we don't have a program, but we are a 10-minute train ride from New York City. They called in all these boosters from that were working at networks in New York City and radio stations. We'll get you internships, study communications. It's a basic program. It's not a big program. We don't have what they have, but here you go. You're going to be right in New York City. And I believed him and I transferred there. And he kept his word. That was my second school. So I had to sit out.
Wow. We've only gotten to school number 2, and we haven't even gotten to your first time on the radio.
It's close. It's close. So I'm at school number 2. I sit out a whole year. I start playing. It was one of those small schools that always won their tournament. So they always made it to the NCAAs. So this small school, St. Peter's, the women's basketball team, always ranked in the top 30 at that time. I'm leading the nation, probably top 25 in scoring. I'm averaging 25 points. My parents are having a fit because they think I'm not shooting enough because I could average 50. They're so used to me scoring 50 that they didn't we laugh about it now, that scoring 25 points a game in Division I was pretty good. And
yeah,
they
that's respectable.
Yeah, that's not bad.
They weren't used to it. Literally, we laugh about it. To this day, my dad, we laugh about it. My father would call me after a game and they would scold me. I said, Dad, we won. I was 10 for 12. By nature, I was a point guard. I wanted to be a point guard. I just didn't have any good girls on my team who could score. So that's why I had to shoot. When I went to college, I was so happy I could pass the ball. I was leading the team in scoring and assists, but they said you're only shooting 12 times a game. But Dad, we won. We won by a lot. We beat a ranked team, but you could have scored 40 points easily. So anyway,
Oh gosh.
everything's good except for my parents wanting me to score 40 or 50 points. Just naive to the fact that your daughter's scoring 25 points in college. This is good. We go down. I sit out my year. I play. We go down to Liberty University to a tournament in Liberty University. My father happens to know the men's basketball coaches because who was this girl from this small Christian school that went to Syracuse? Do they have any male talent? So they started recruiting, looking for male talent, men basketball players from my father's school. Go down to this tournament. Jerry Falwell Sr., rest in peace, sitting in there. The women played in the big stadium. We're the ranked team. It's like smaller teams, Liberty and some Appalachian State, some other small teams. But we were it because I was scoring 20. I was leading scorer in the country. It was a pretty big deal for them, for us to be there. We go there. I'm lighting it up. I'm lighting it up. The men's basketball coach happens to say, Jerry Falwell Sr. loved women's basketball. And he said, who's that? And they said, well, matter of fact, she's her father's here and he's a pastor. And he said, well, why is a evangelical pastor's daughter going to a Jesuit school? Let me speak to her father.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, this is the truth. Goes over to my father and talks about me transferring there. My father laughed him off. She just transferred. This is her first year playing. She's not going anywhere. She's very happy at Syracuse University. He says, I have a brand new 50,000 watt state of the art radio station. I've got a brand new television station. She can come on here. Nobody's ever been on this radio station. I don't even have any black people here that I could put on. I'll put her on. Never heard her. Let her work out her kinks here. And by the time she leaves Liberty University, she can work everything out on a 50,000 watt station.
And sold.
Well, not to my father. He comes to me and it wasn't sold to me. No, I was set with New York City and the internships as long as I had a degree in communications, even though it was small. My father comes to me. I laughed my father off. And my father at that time, he really wanted me back in a Christian environment, but he didn't say it. He said, okay, but I think it's a good opportunity. I said, no. I go back to St. Peter's. First letter I get in the mail is, we're sorry, we have to shut down the communications program. We don't have enough money for it.
Oh.
I could not believe it. I was crushed. The coach was crying. I said, I have to go. And that's how I ended up at Liberty. Had to sit out a whole year. But Jerry Falwell Sr. stayed true to his word. I'd never been on radio before. Didn't know how to work any buttons. Didn't know how to do anything. He said, give her a show. You guys show her how to do it. At that time, we were using CDs. Give her CDs. Call it the Black Gospel Inspiration Show. You can talk. You can play music. You can do whatever you want. And that's how I got my start in radio. Because Jerry Falwell Sr. recruited me there, kept his word, and put me on his station.
Wow.
Well, what a cool opportunity to kind of get thrown in the deep end there, do your own show, and really kind of have to start it from scratch.
Yeah, I did. I don't know what I was doing, guys. I have no idea. But it it was very traumatic for me because all my life I'd been under my parents. Syracuse is right there, 2 hours. St. Peter's, Jersey City was about 2 hours away. And now my sister had dropped out of school. Now I'm by myself. So it's my first time away from my family in a place called Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there you go. It's a lot better now. Lynchburg, Virginia. Not most of the black people were athletes. A few non-blacks. It wasn't like a Bob Jones at that time, but it was probably a step up from a Bob Jones University, and so it was different. And then they were funded. They were hardcore. I think Southern Baptist. I come from an evangelical background, so I sit in classes where charismatics are being talked about. So it was challenging. But I tell you, it's one of the best experiences in my life, and I would never trade it for anything in the world. So that's how I started in radio.
Wow. So now let's go ahead and move into this next phase of the conversation here. So it was part of your degree. You knew you wanted an education beyond sports. You had a belief, at least at some point, that was going to be more important down the road than I guess dreams of being in a women's NBA kind of program, right?
Absolutely. Yes. So, I never had aspirations to play professional basketball because still at that time there was not a WNBA. I didn't know anything about overseas, but I never thought about that. At this time I'm focused on radio or television. Okay,
so you got a chance to be on the radio thanks to Jerry Falwell Sr. You get a lot of experience. And the best experience is doing. I don't care what anybody else says. You can be in a classroom all day long until you're on the live mic, taking calls and trying to figure out how to fill the time and learn how to, get out at the right time and come back with the right, you got to do it. There's just no way you can read it in a book.
I think it worked out pretty good because even with Newhouse School of Communications, a lot of the people that I know who were in there and went there, a lot of them still they got a lot of book knowledge, but they didn't get a lot of hands-on. I don't know how it is now, but I would not take anything back for the experience of hands-on.
All right. So what made the decision between kind of pushing more toward in front of the camera versus behind the microphone?
I had a gap. And at that time, there was no Michael Strahan's on, what's he on? Good Morning America. What's he on? Michael is on the football player with the gap.
Yeah. No, I know who you're talking about. What is, it used to be the Regis show?
Regis and Kathy Lee, whatever that is now.
Exactly. So nobody was out there on television like that. Even the local news anchors or reporters, nobody had a gap.
David Letterman.
Oh, I never thought. See, I didn't get to watch him. I told you I'm charismatic.
Yeah, he was probably too late and a little too worldly for y'all.
There you go. The W word. It was worldly. Absolutely. So nobody I saw had a gap. And so for me, nobody told me, nobody ever said to me, even when I was doing, you can't do this because you didn't have a gap. I didn't see it. And so part of me became a little paranoid, but I knew I could close it if I wanted to, but it was a tradition in my grandmother's family. And I got to a point, I used to be made fun of growing up for my gap. And as much as it bothered me, I always said, if I can't be what I want to be with this gap, then I'm just not going to do it. I'm not closing my gap. So not closing my gap had more to do with I'm not closing it because you guys are making fun of me growing up. So I never closed it. That wasn't an option. And I just thought, nobody told me. I just thought, I don't see anybody like that with the gap. And so I just kind of went. I didn't like the way I looked on the camera, and I just gravitated to radio because you can walk in with shorts on and your hair, jump out of bed and walk in. And start
That's why I like filling in on the radio.
So let's take it through then your first. So it's one thing to be on a college station where they're kind of obligated to help you along. It's another thing when you move into the private sector and have to actually perform and get ratings. And then you get a program director and you find out that there's things that they want you to do differently that you may not like. So what was your first foray into then the real world radio versus college?
I wouldn't call it real world yet, but because it was a church in North Carolina that had a radio station, and somebody told them about me. They said, "Hey, you want to come here and work after?" And I said, "Cool." can work as an on-air personality and we'll teach you sales to make some, you show you how to make the money. And I got there and they gave me a little music show, but they did not pay me because they didn't have money. And I guess they said I was working for the ministry. I said, nope, I was working. I didn't leave. Ministry needs to pay some money. This is not the agreement. So I did that a little bit, but the blessing in that was I did do sales. So it showed me that aspect of it. I didn't get paid. So I go back to New York. Something happened. I will go back to New York. I was at that small station in Winston-Salem for a very short time, maybe 7 months. Go back to New York. Surely upstate New York, I can get a job. I went to help my parents out. My father has a couple of businesses while I was trying to get a job in radio, and I could not get a job. Somebody said to me, the only way in this market, upstate New York, all these jobs are going to, the entry-level jobs are going to the kids who go through the broadcast school. I'm like, well, I've been to 3 colleges. They're like, that's just the politics of this area. All these jobs, it has to start off entry, and they're funneling themselves through the broadcast school, which was a 7-month program. So guess what I did? I could not get a job behind the scenes or anything. I dumbed down my resume and I went to the Albany School of Broadcasting. I went in, I acted like I didn't know anything. I did enough to feel superior than everybody, but not enough that you've done this before. And sure enough, after 7 months, I paid about $6,000 for that program. But that's the only way I could break into the market. And there weren't any black, they had a black station, which was Jam something or another, but I wasn't into black urban hip hop. There were, as far as talk radio or any other format, there weren't black people on. So when I went through this system, true to what I was told, I got funneled into, before I even graduated, I started working for a news talk station. I was doing reporting. And then from there, I knew I wanted to do talk. I was listed, by that time, I knew I wanted to do talk. I never did it, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I would just practice, do my own talk shows in my car. I would just do talk shows. There was no platform. There was no, at that time, we didn't have a podcasting. If there was MySpace, wasn't on it. I just did talk shows. I was like a crazy person talking to myself all the time, going to breaks, trying to figure this thing out, coming up with topics, doing an agenda. Finally, in Amsterdam, New York, it was 50 minutes away from where I lived. A job opened up. It was a news talk station, but I applied for the talk job. They said, no, you don't have any experience. I'm like, you guys are talking to 3 people. I talk to 3 people in my head, like when I'm doing my own talk show. I can do this. They were like, no, but we'll give you a job as a news anchor. So that was a step up. Before I was reporting, so now I could anchor the news. And I kept telling myself, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to be a talk show host here. After a couple of months, it was a snowstorm. I was doing the anchoring, still doing shows in my head, sneaking in the studio, doing other shows. A snowstorm, I'm the only one that made it. And the owner came in and he was like, well, we're going to have to just keep doing the news all day. And I was the only one there. I said, I can do a talk show. He said, can't do a talk. I said, I can. Did the talk show and the girl never got her job back. And that's how I got started in talk radio. And from there, I moved over to left talk radio only for a little bit because I had an opportunity to be with a cluster of stations as a morning show co-host for, what did we do? The best of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now. And, Star 101.3. The only reason why I did that, I wasn't going to leave. I was making $6 an hour, traveling 50 miles a day, doing an hour talk show and anchoring news, but I knew that was my passion. So when they approached me to something closer, Albany, hey, we're a bigger market. This is home. You can do morning show co-host on Star 101.3. You can voice track on the moon. I'm like, what's the moon? You got to learn who Inkelberg and Humperdinck is. I'm like, what?
Oh,
those old people get mad when you don't pronounce stuff right. So I had to, but you voice track on there, and then you can do the country station. It'll look good on your resume, and we're offering you $50 billion more. I was like, no, I knew my passion was talk radio. I said, it wasn't even a consideration. I'm going to go 50 miles to talk to 3 people for $6 an hour. my dad said, you really should consider it. It's a cluster of stations. It's here in Albany. It's a bigger market. I said, Dad, I want talk radio. And finally, they convinced me to do it. I did it. They changed my name because I guess the little small station was bleeding over to the Albany market, and they knew MalaniKai. I guess I was saying controversial stuff. I don't know, but couldn't want my name couldn't be MalaniKai. I was the first Black person on air in those in that cluster of stations. They changed my name to Carrie Whitaker. Carrie Whitaker, KerriWhittaker. And they didn't put me on the website for a while because they wanted people to get to know me as John and Carrie in the morning and continuous hits all day on Star 101.3. They didn't want to put me on the website. They didn't want people to know I was Black. I was fine with it. I have people that had a fit with it. Yo, you shouldn't do that. They're holding the Black girl down. I was like, nope, it's an opportunity. If this is what they have to do. And that's what I did for 6 months. I did Star 101.3. I voice tracked everything else. And when it was time to go to the Saratoga racetrack for our first remote, some people were the station was a little nervous because now the Black girl's going out. You're going to uncover who Carrie Whitaker is. We're at the table. I'm serious. We're at the table setting up. My co-host, who was a big, like 300-pound redhead Irish guy who had been on that station, co-host. He had been the host of that station for like 20 years. So he's known in the community. At the racetrack, that's the wealthy people coming out from all over. And
now, is this a horse track or is this like
a horse track? A horse track.
Okay.
A racetrack. Yeah. And so they're coming with the big hats and the money and the this and the that. And we're at the table. The engineer had walked away who was hooking up the remote. And I was just really sitting there. I don't know what I was doing, but these two ladies walked up and they said, is Carrie going to be here today? And I smiled. And I kid you not, I know this is going to sound like a movie. I kid you not. I said, I am Carrie. The lady clutched her pearls. I'm not kidding you. It's like literally, she looked like her and her friend looked like they saw a ghost. And at that time, co-host John walked up and he said, did you meet Carrie? And they tried to straighten their face out, and that was it. And that's how I started. And then from there, I came straight to Atlanta.
That is awesome.
Yeah. I wouldn't change Carrie Whitaker. Call me Carrie, as a matter of fact.
All right, Carrie. So what year was that about that you were?
Oh my gosh. I got to Atlanta. Oh my gosh. Wow. When did I come to Atlanta? 16 years ago, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Working there. And I said, okay, guys, my radio mentor is there. I'm going to Atlanta. And they were like, you can't go from this market to Atlanta. And I said, why can't you? And they said, because you can't. That's not how it works. You go from market number 60 something to market number this, market number that. And then eventually at some point in your time with life, you may work your way into a top 10 market. And I was dumb. I was young. I was stupid. I was in my 20s. There's no way. I mean, I'm going from here. Well, how are you going to do it? I don't know. So there was a station down here called 640 WGST. I just figured I targeted them. I didn't know anything about them. I knew they were here. And I was like, let me apply for anything. I started applying for any and everything I could apply for. No. Then a news anchor job came open. I applied for it. At that time, CNN radio was here and CNN had started laying off. And I was calling the news director. He said, you don't qualify. I mean, sorry. I mean, you don't sound that bad, but we've got news anchors right here in the city. I was like, well, I'll do anything. You have the Georgia News Network. I'll work weekends. I'll work nights. For 6 months, I called this guy. I didn't even want to talk to him anymore. Can I get his voicemail? Hi, MalaniKai calling from New York, just seeing if you had any openings. Then one time I said, hi, I'm coming to Atlanta. Can I at least come by the station? He said, sure, but we don't have any openings. Go by the station. I meet him. He's like, you're nice. We don't have any openings. And that was it. I kept calling. Once a week, I called the program director at 640, said, hey, I'm willing to do anything. Do you have anything? I'll take 5 hours. I'll run the board. I don't have to be on the air. And finally, one day out of the clear blue, he calls me and he says, I looked at your resume again. I mean, you're not really the best news anchor. And he said, but my wife happens to be from Boston Spa, the station you're working at now. He said, so I think there might be a connection. If you can get here, I can't pay for anything. I can give you about 10 hours a week on the Georgia News Network. weekends, and the times would vary. Cool. I was gone. Gave 2 weeks. That's how I got to Atlanta.
That's awesome. Now, at that time, was WGST the news monster, Planet Radio, or
it was 640 WGST? So I never heard of Planet. I think that had to be like 2002, 2003. So
yeah, it didn't last very long.
Yeah, they went through this thing where it was like every week they changed who they were.
It was a debacle. I was here when it turned into Planet Radio.
Never heard Planet Radio.
Yeah, it was a whole rebranding.
Kim Peterson was over there. I think they still had Rush Limbaugh. So anyway, it was kind of a study in how not to run a radio station. And I was just a fan. They were driving us crazy.
Oh, okay. So
I'm keeping track of the time here, and I know your time's getting short.
I told them I might be about 10 minutes late, so
okay.
We have a few minutes. So I was on the Georgia News Network. I guess they had some affiliates around they were feeding these news feeds to small stations around the state, and I was doing reports for GST. So that's how I got here. I came from Albany straight here, and from there I did some work for, I don't know how I got a call. I was working for Turner. My main job was Turner Broadcasting. So I worked there I had a full-time job with them, and I was filling in with radio, and I kind of got mafia'd into that, met somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody else who knew somebody else who said, you don't qualify, but you're nice. We like you. We're going to give you a job. And that's how I kind of got there. And they worked with my schedule anytime Clear Channel called me. I was good. And that was it. And from there, I did little stints in talk radio. My eyes always on WSB. And everybody's like, that's hard. You can't get on WSB. Like, why? You just can't. And that's kind of where we are now. I did these little stints and never lost faith. And I stayed true. I had some opportunities in other markets. And I said, I'm not leaving Atlanta. It's I've been here forever. There's the number one news talk station in the country. I'm not going anywhere. And I mean, I would meet people who said they knew Candace Presley, and they knew this person, and they knew that person. And I tried, how you try everything you can do to try. And then I just gave up trying. Let me just do what I can do podcasts, do this, and let God work out everything else. And it's when I stopped trying that everything started hitting. I remember I was real close to 92.9 The Game. They called me in, and I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and take something, because I was doing little market stuff. I didn't want to get on a station here. I was filling in at that time 92.9. It wasn't The Game. It was 92.9 Dave FM. So I was filling in for Margot and a lot of people on there doing music. So I'd do anything in radio. I just wanted to get in. And at 92.9, Dave, I thought I was going to be able to get into AOK. Nothing ever worked out. So I finally said, you know what, just go ahead and go talk to The Game. It switched over to The Game. So I went there, thought I had that job. And I said, okay, God, I'll just do sports. It is my passion as well. And at the last minute, they said no. And I thought, okay, God, you're funny. And 2 weeks later, after applying for 6 or 7 years, I applied for everything with Cox because I worked at Turner Broadcasting. So my behind the scenes resume looked good as far as traffic, as far as operations. I could do all that. I was at a really good position at Turner. Nothing would open up. I applied for anything. Nothing happened. So last time what happened 3 years ago, something pops up. It's traffic. I mean, I'd never did traffic before, but I'm like, how hard could that be? You know?
In Atlanta?
How hard could that be? Somebody give them something, they're reading it. I didn't know you had to do gathering and all that, but that's besides the point. I didn't know Doug Turnbull was like anal about traffic. Like he had a science behind it. So I applied, and then I sat there and I thought, you know what? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity. You've done this. Go find out. I didn't know traffic had its own person. Find out who the program director is. Send them your stuff. I go, of course, Chris Camp's name is not, his address is not evident. So I did every combination I could until it didn't get returned to me. Chris.camp at WSB, I did all these combinations until an email didn't return. And basically I said, I applied online. I don't have any traffic stuff. Here's my Dave 92.9 stuff. Here's I didn't tell them any talk show stuff. I just wanted to get in and do traffic. Here's this stuff. I mean, I'm hard, all the stuff you're supposed to say. And that was it. It never came back to me. And that's when he never answered back, that's when I went to the interview with the game, 92.9 The Game. And then that door shut. It was 2 weeks after that, Doug Turnbull calls. And he says, hey, Chris Camp, a program director, and he got something from you. He passed it on to me. Do you want to come in? And that's how I got in. Weekend overnights traffic at WSB.
You're in WSB. You get in the foot in the door. It is the #1 station in Atlanta. It's the 7th largest market in the country. It's a privilege to be on WSB. Everybody knows that. How do you eventually stumble into word on the street?
My dad told me, go in traffic, do not say a word that you want to be a talk show host. I'm like, are you kidding? He said, no, I'm not. For one, traffic was a beast. It was way more than I expected. These guys have choppers, they have scanners, they've got things they've got their own traffic center. I said, what is this? So I like to be great at everything I do. And I felt like I was just really bad at it. So I learned that, and I'm there for about a year. My dad said, well, can I say something now? He said, don't say a word. God will handle that. You don't have to say anything about talk radio. I ran into Candace Presley about 2 or 3 times, and every time I ran into her, I thought she hated me. Okay, I really did. I couldn't read her. She would say hi, and that was it. So one time, she's going to moderate the mayoral race on WSB TV. I'm never there on Sundays in the afternoons. I happen to be filling in. You know how we dress for radio on nights and weekends? Well, because nobody's there. Well, I happen to be filling in about 6 o'clock, and I see all these cars there in the parking deck. I was like, what's going on? I was like, oh man, something told me to dress up anyway. I don't not dress up, but don't come in like you're doing an overnight. And I did. And I was like, oh, everybody's here. The mayors are here. Everybody's here. It's a big thing. Candace comes into the traffic center and she says, hi. And I didn't think she remembered who I was. I said, I'm MalaniKai. She says, I know. I'm getting ready to go do the debate. Why don't you come by? Haven't had a chance to talk to you since you've been here. It's been about a year. Why don't you email me and come by my office and see me? And I said, cool. And I thought I had did that before. And I was like, she's just talking. Let me go ahead and email her. Sure enough, she sets it. We go to her office the next week. I see a picture of Condoleezza Rice, which shocked me because I didn't pick Candace to be a Condoleezza Rice person. And we talked about how she got that picture, talked about her career, and that was it. And we're getting ready to leave. And I got a good insight, felt pretty good. I was at least a step closer because Pete Spriggs' office was next to her. So at least I'm in the office next to the program director. And that was it. And then she said, wait, I don't know anything about you. And then she grilled me. Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. What did you do? Why are you here? And that's what she did. And finally she said, well, what can I do for you? And I was like, nothing. You just spent an hour with me out of your day. And one of the things that stuck out in my mind, she was assistant program director at that time. She did not answer her phone. You guys will know in this age of technology how critical this was. She didn't answer her phone, look at her computer or cell phone, office phone, ring in. She didn't look at her computer one time. That whole entire hour I was in her office, she sat there and looked straight at me. Every time that phone, she didn't touch it, turn it off. I was like, wow, this lady's really paying attention. She said, what can I do for you? I said, well, you just talked to me for an hour. She said, well, what is your passion in radio? I said, well, my passion is talk radio. She said, she kind of squinted at me. She said, talk radio. I said, yes. And she said, do you have anything? And I said, yeah. She said, okay, let me hear it. And you know, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I said, yes, ma'am. Send it to her. Months, I don't hear from Candace at all. And I'm like, oh boy. Jeez, I must be really terrible and I don't hear from her. And then I got sad after about 2 months later. My father said, don't worry about it. Your life is not in the hands of anybody but God. 2 months later, we're at Toys for Tots. I forgot all about it. I'm still coming for my overnight, show up at Toys for Tots. Pete Spriggs, I'd seen him. I knew him. I waved to him, been to meetings with him. But again, I'm there Friday, Saturday, weekends, overnight. I don't see people. I see him walking towards me. And he's just smiling. I was like, that's the program director. He's like, hey, MalaniKai. I was like, oh, you know what's my name? He said, yeah. He says, he points to me. He says, I got to get you on the radio. And I said, I am on the radio. He said, no, on talk radio. I said, you do? He said, yeah. He said, probably in January after the holidays. And I'm squinting. I said, you do? He said, yeah, Candace didn't tell you. And I said, no. He said, I don't know what you said to her. He said, but you left her office one day and she marched over to my office and looked me in the eye and said, Pete, have you ever sat down and had a conversation with MalaniKai? And he said, no. She said, she needs to be on talk radio. You need to talk to her. I said, oh, really? And he said, yes, she never told you. I said, she never said a word. And that's how it all got started. And I said to him, so you heard I was really excited. I was like, so you like my demo? He said, I've never heard your demo. I said, oh. I said, you haven't? And then I called Candace and she says, I work in, I don't tell people what I do. I just do what I do. She said, I've never heard your demo. She said, I just know talent. And that's what I told Pete. Do you need me to listen to your demo? Or do you want me to listen to you next week when he puts you on to fill in? I was like, no, thank you.
Yep.
And that's how so I started there, started with Tim Andrews, tried to do that. Then Shelley Winter came along. They're like, hey, there's 2 Black people that are opinionated. Let's go together and call it word on the street. And that's really how we got started.
Well, and the coolest thing about that show, though, is, and I think it's the direction talk is heading. There are still a handful of the solo voices, but I really feel the industry and the audience enjoys a conversation with multiple people in the room, not all identically parroting each other. And I think that's why word on the street works so well.
I hope so. And that's what Pete thought. And Pete was looking at the demographics of Atlanta. And so now you hear DJ Crystal a little bit more, Scotty B sometimes, even though it's technically Shelley Winter and I, but we started just pulling them in, just for another voice. And then when we found out DJ Crystal was very liberal, and we thought, okay, great, that's a voice for the people. And that's exactly what you said is exactly what Pete Spriggs said. He said, Shelley, and he knew it probably would be harder for Shelley than it was for me. Even Tim and I, because Tim was a part of Tim didn't come from solo hosting. He was a part of, the von Hessler doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
Shelley came from solo hosting in a major market by himself. I was solo hosting on little small stations. But you still have an ego. You still have an ego. And Pete said, I like both of you separately. This takes nothing away from you as solo hosts, but I'm telling you the future of radio is people like you two together, because Shelley, she's not always going to agree with you. You're like way far out there. She's not going to, and we didn't know DJ Crystal was liberal at the time. And Pete talked about bringing in guests that weren't, always conservative or Christian or Republican, try to get the Democrats on. It's hard to get them on this station. And exactly what you said. He said it's the future of radio, and it doesn't take anything away from you guys, but I think this could be a great radio show if you guys paired up. And we had to set egos and pair up.
Well, I think it's interesting too. I've been a talk radio fan since the late 70s, early 80s. And MalaniKai, I got to tell you, one of the things I really appreciate about what y'all are doing is the talk radio space has mostly been taken up with white men.
Right.
And I think for y'all, I know that's changing, but for y'all to be that, well, we need people like Alan out, is what I'm saying.
Oh, geez.
No, but to have those discussions about politics, whether, from those various views of conservative, liberal, whatever those things are going to morph into, but having a diversity of people on the air to have those discussions is huge. And I don't think our country is really going to get over this craziness that we're in right now unless we can do that.
Agree. And I can tell you, Pete was on, I guess Pete knew the transition and he was on his way out. It was his last act. I was in New York because I was only filling in. I said, well, I'm going to have to do it from New York because my family has businesses and I coach the boys prep team. So I told them I'm going to be gone from October until March and I'll be back. It scared Shelley Winter because, once you get in, and Alan, this, once you get plugged in at the #1 news talk station in the country, I didn't know we were number 8 in the market. Atlanta's number 8 in the market.
Atlanta's the 7th largest market in the country. That's not the ranking in terms of 1 through 4. It's just in terms of the listening size. We're number 7. And
Okay.
WSB, the number 1 station by far of any of the stations in Atlanta.
Okay, so you know, Alan, that once you get plugged in, even as a fill-in, you make yourself ready by any means necessary. So
Yes.
we were filling in here or there, here or there, here or there. And I said, well, I promise I got to go back and coach this prep school year. Shelly thought I'd lost my mind because we didn't have a weekend show. We were just filling in here or there. We started with the show because we didn't have a name. Then Pete and Shelly wanted to name it CP Time, Colored People's Time. They thought it was hilarious. I said, no, we're not doing that.
No,
Okay.
that would be
I said,
not be good.
oh, they loved it. Pete loved it. Shelly loved it. They were trying to convince me. I said, absolutely not. So we're not, I mean, we're literally, Alan, you know how it is. They'll say, hey, can you do this day? And you say, you do what you can to do it. Shelly knew that would not be possible with me in New York. So he had a fit. He was angry with me because I went to New York, and I said, I'm sorry, buddy. And then when I got to New York, the technology that I was using to try to connect with them, it wasn't working out. So by December, I said, I can't even fill in with you guys on the air. Just go ahead and do what you got to do. And this guy, he was angry. And I called Pete. I said, Pete, Shelly's angry. Pete said, don't worry about it. And sure enough, Pete calls me March. It was 2 weeks before I was coming back. He said, I'm retiring. Oh, the word got out that he's retiring. I said, what in the world? He called me. He said, when will you'll be back in a couple of weeks, right? And I said, yes. And he said, I did my last act. You know how a president does executive orders and pardons and things on the way out? And I said, yes. He said, I did my last act. And I said, what is that, Pete? He said, you got a regular show on Saturdays and Sundays. And that's how we got started.
That's awesome. And it is a fantastic show, folks. I know we had Scotty B on several episodes back. And so MalaniKai, I'm going to let you, as we wind down, remind the audience that we do stream everything live if people want to listen in, but then I think it's bundled up and put out as a podcast for people to real-time listen anytime they want.
Absolutely. We're on Saturdays and Sundays at 9 p.m. Saturdays, if there's a Georgia Bulldogs game, that will vary. We will also fill in during the week for Mark Aram sometimes during the week. Thanksgiving week will be on a lot, probably that whole entire week. But we have a podcast page on WSB. It's Word on the Street. So if you put that in the search engine or go to WSB, all of our episodes are there. And it's people like you guys who bring us on because we're new to the game. So to be able to, Scotty B, myself, whomever you're bringing on from our show, to be able to share our experiences and to share with your audience, I count that as an honor. And I told God always, I don't care if somebody calls me, I know where I came from. And I said, if somebody calls me to be able to get the word out, I don't ask about the audience. I don't say anything. I say yes, because I told him God gave me an opportunity to speak, and I'm going to speak. So I thank you guys for having somebody from Word on the Street on. Again, it's on WSB, or Saturdays and Sundays at 9 p.m. We're on Twitter. I don't think anybody is doing anything with Facebook. I think Shelly Winter joined Parler. Have you guys done that yet? Are you guys?
Yes,
I had created a Parler account a while ago because I'm one of those people. I don't care about who thinks they're censoring what and who's the big dog. I just want multiple places to reach out to people. So I'm keeping everything. I'm not ditching one thing.
Right.
No,
So,
yeah.
do you guys use it though? Is it active?
Yeah.
Okay. So Shelly Winter's on there. He's telling us to get on, but we're on social media, just trying to get out. Like we said, we're just doing what we can. We know Alan, there are people that would like give up their right hand to be in the situation that we're in right now.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really an honor. And I don't think it's necessarily that Pete Spriggs put together the best. I mean, there are great talkers out there all over the place. I think he just found some chemistry. It's a good market, like you said, for Black people. For me as a Black woman, I look at talkers top 100. There's very far, few and in between. I don't know. There might be a Black woman somewhere, but very far, few and in between where you are going to see a Black woman talking that's getting some recognition. So I count it as an honor. And it's like I said, it's not because basketball, I was the best. This, it's not I'm the best. Right time, right place, right time. And you just have to milk the moment while you're there. And I think you guys know that too as well.
Well, the difference between, I think, this industry and sports, obviously you've got to have talent at some level, but you are always learning. There's always somewhere to improve. It's a progression. It's not a destination. You're always going to be trying to push forward. And as long as you've got that resolve and that drive, and obviously for folks who are listening to your story over the last 60 minutes here, you have that drive. And I think that's what not only Condis, but Pete Spriggs, the program director, saw. You know, there's somebody who's not going to just sit back and say, I'm good enough to just stay where I am.
And it's interesting you say that. I think for the greatness in sports, to be as great as I was in high school, and if you look at all the great people, it's that same mentality where you don't get great in sports because you go to practice, you do what everybody else does. You're constantly doing more than the average person. And it's one thing that Pete Spriggs said. He said, I didn't have to hear you on the radio. I know that because of your sports background and your sports story that you're a competitor and you like to win. And he said, that's part of what I need, somebody who's always going to learn. And you're right. It's always something to learn, Alan. You know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, every day. MalaniKai, I just want to ask if there's, do you engage with your listeners directly? Do you want to share your social media at all? Or is that something only through the show?
No, they can find me. The name is MalaniKai, MalaniKai. On Twitter, I think I'm on Facebook. I got to be honest with you before I let you go. I get in these moods with caffeine and with social media. I don't know where they come from. One day I wake up, seriously, one day I wake up, I'm drinking caffeine every single day. I have to have, and I'm bougie about it, I have to have an oat milk latte, all right? I don't drink dairy, I'm vegan, so I'm paying $6-7 every day. Oat milk latte, oat milk, and one day I'll wake up, I'm like, ugh, I don't want it anymore. And it just goes away until I want it again. And I have no rhyme or reason. Could be 6 months, could be 3 months until it hits me. And that's the way I am with social media. So I woke up and I just don't feel like doing it anymore. And it sits there. And then when I feel like coming back, I come back. So I'm there. They can find me. We also have word on the street, but contact me personally, MalaniKai. I'm on Twitter. I think the last thing I posted was Shelly, before I let you guys go, and I know I have to go, we were having a debate. Well, not a debate. We were on the radio Sunday before the elections, and everybody gave their predictions. And Shelly said, "Oh, we're going to know we'll know who the president is Tuesday night, Wednesday morning." And he's the political pundit. And I said, "No, you won't." He said, "Well," I said, "What do you mean you won't?" I said, "Shelly, you're not going to know the count. It's going to take about a week to get count." And I said, "It's still there's going to be drama. Donald Trump there's going to be drama getting him out of that White House." Shelly's like, "You're kidding me, blah." So anyway, I ended up being right. So I went back on my Twitter page. The last thing I went on, I was laughing at all the political pundits who had Biden by a landslide or Trump by a landslide. And I was the one who's not a political pundit that said, "You're not going to get any results. It'll take about a week to do this. Stuff is going to malfunction." I didn't know a pipe was going to burst in State Farm Arena. I'm doing air quotes. But I knew there was going to be drama. And I just felt drama. I felt drama. And I told Shelly, the guy, you're going to have to drag that guy out of the White House. He's going to concede as soon as he's not conceding nothing. So my last tweet was basically, "Aha, I told you so. I'll be back when I have another I'll tell you so." But I'm there.
MalaniKai, you are awesome to listen to on the radio, and you have a perspective that I think is just, everyone needs to be open to more voices and a wider view. And I think when you start listening to a show like Word on the Street, where you have one person who might be more conservative, one more liberal, one maybe more moderate, you've got a Christian background yourself, others maybe not so much, but the cascade of voices allows the people listening to say, well, wait a minute, if all of them can be in the same room at the same time, having fun, and not necessarily talking in an echo chamber because they all have their own political or social points of view, maybe I should stop being in my own little echo chamber and get out there and start engaging. Because I don't know about you, MalaniKai, the thing that drives me absolutely crazy right now is the tribal mentality we have is, I'm on my team and my team is all good, and you're on your team and your team is all bad. Well, that's not true. And that's just sad. And that's not going to help our country in any way, if we can't learn to start communicating a little bit more than that.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I love what you guys are doing. Can't wait to get a chance to hear it back. Thank you, audience, for the applause. I hear it.
MalaniKai, thanks so much for being here in our listeners' lounge, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you and bringing you back in future seasons as your career continues to blossom.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime. I appreciate it.
Thanks, MalaniKai.
Okay, you're welcome. Talk to you guys soon.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.
All right, well, now it is time for us to go into that next segment that so many people love. We like to call it...
Bring out today.
Well, Alan, this week we have a very special gentleman who we're going to mourn. Joe Heller. This comes to us from legacy.com. Joe Heller made his last undignified and largely irrelevant gesture on September 8th, 2019, signing off on a life, in his words, generally well-lived and with few regrets. When the doctors confronted his daughters with the news last week that your father is a very sick man, in unison they replied, "You have no idea." God thankfully broke the mold after Joe was born to the late Joseph Heller Sr. and Ruth Marion Clock on January 24th, 1937 in New Haven, Connecticut. Being born during the Depression shaped Joe's formative years and resulted in a lifetime of frugality, hoarding, and cheap mischief, often at the expense of others. Being the eldest was a dubious task, but he was up for the challenge and led and tortured his siblings through a childhood of obnoxious pranks with his brother Bob, generally serving as his wingman. Pat, Dick, and Kathy were often on the receiving end of such lessons as ding dong dog shit and thwarting lunch thieves with laxative laced chocolate cake and excrement meatloaf sandwiches.
Wow. This guy was what, a teenager in the 70s? 60s, 70s?
Let's see. He was born in 1937. He was a teenager in the 50s.
Oh my God.
Well, and this guy
just
just gets better. Yeah. His mother was not immune to his pranks, as he named his first dog Fart, so she would have to scream his name to come home if he wandered off. Joe started his long and illustrious career as a library assistant at Yale Law School Library alongside his father before hatching a plan with his lifelong buddies, Ronnie Kaiser and Johnny Olson, to join the Navy and see the world together. Their plot was thwarted, and the three were split up when Joe pulled the long straw and was assigned to the coveted base in Bermuda, where he joined the Seabees Construction Battalion and was appointed to the position of Construction Electrician's Mate, 3rd Class. His service to the country and community didn't end after his honorable discharge. Joe was a town constable, volunteer fireman, and ambulance association member, crosswalk guard, public works snowplower, and a proud member of the Antique Veterans Organization. Joe was a self-taught chemist. Get this. This is amazing to me. Joe was a self-taught chemist and worked at Cheeseboro Ponds, where he developed one of the first cosmetic lines. There he met the love of his life, Irene, who was hoodwinked into thinking he was a charming individual with decorum. Boy, was she ever wrong. Joe embarrassed her daily with his mouth and a choice of clothing. To this day, we do not understand how he convinced our mother, an exceedingly proper woman and a pillar of her church, to sew and create the colorful costumes and props which he used for his antics. Growing up in Joe's household was never dull. In the old adage of, you only pull the hair of those who you love, his three daughters were well loved. Joe is a frequent customer of the girls' beauty shops, allowing them to do his hair and makeup liberally. Joe was a frequent shopper at the Essex dump, and he left his family with a house full of crap, 300 pounds of birdseed and dead houseplants, and they have no idea what to do with it. Besides his beloved wife, Irene, and his brother, Bobby, Joe was predeceased by his pet fish, Jack, who we found in the freezer last week. Left to squabble over his vast fortune, real estate holdings, and treasures are his three daughters, Michelle, Lizette, and Monique Heller. Sorry, I'm going to skip over some of this. Left with decades of fond and colorful memories are his siblings Pat, Richard, Kathy, sister-in-law Kathy McGowan of some small town, Diane, and 14 nieces and nephews. No flowers, please. The family is seeking donations to offset the expense of publishing an exceedingly long obituary, which would have really pissed Joe off. Seriously, what would have made him the happiest is for you to go have a cup of coffee with a friend and bullshit about his antics or play a harmless prank on some unsuspecting sap. If we still have not dissuaded you, feel compelled to waste your hard-earned money to honor his memory. Donations may be sent to the CB's Memorial Scholarship Association, P.O. Box 667, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Wow.
So this was written by his family, and he sounds like a great guy who could drive his family a little crazy. But I love
like
the
it's
fact
written
that,
by his children because they made a comment about their mother.
Yes, and it sounds like their mother went through some sort of living hell with him, but Joe sounds like a great guy. And I was really impressed by the fact that he taught himself chemistry and was able to develop a cosmetic line.
That's cool.
So impressive guy.
That's somebody who's like, you can't tell him no. He's like, oh yeah, challenge accepted.
Right. And I love the fact that he named his dog Fart so that his mom would have to go out on the porch and yell fart to get the dog to come home.
Fart, where are you? Come here.
Come on, Fart.
Fart won't come in the house, damn it.
Yeah, so that's Joe Heller of Connecticut with tonight's Bring Out Your Dead.
All right. Well, we move rapidly into our news segment, a segment we like to call
It's No Bullshit.
And Walt, you have the first news story.
Well, this one comes to us from WIS News 10 in Columbia, South Carolina. The police tell us that accused porch pirate was arrested when he shows up at court in the same shirt from the surveillance pictures. So this genius in Goose Creek, South Carolina, a South Carolina man is in custody after wearing the same shirt to a courtroom that he wore to steal packages off the porches in a Goose Creek neighborhood, according to the Goose Creek police. The first picture of the man in a green North Face shirt was posted on the Goose Creek Residents Group Facebook page, claiming he had stolen packages from the porch in the Oak subdivision. The post said, "Beware of the porch pirate," and went on to say the man pictured had stolen packages from at least two porches. Goose Creek police posted to Facebook Friday saying the man came to a courtroom the next day wearing the same shirt. Freaking moron. Well, sometimes people actually do make our job easy. The post from Goose Creek Police Department said, the guy decided to come into our courtroom the day after the first post was made, and lucky for us, he was even wearing the same shirt. We're happy to say he is in custody. Police have not yet released the man's identity or what charges he faces. The post did not say why the man was in the courtroom and if it was related to the stolen packages.
It's No Bullshit.
That makes it nice and easy for the judge and the jury there to see that you look exactly like the shot caught on cam, showing you exactly in the act of stealing stuff.
And apparently this guy wears the same clothes every day, and he's dumb enough to wear a t-shirt to. Why would you wear a t-shirt to court? I mean, what a moron.
Well, takes all kinds, doesn't it?
It does. The criminal mastermind at work.
All right, I've got one here. This is why you got to be careful with who you let, as far as, I think, guys or ladies, but this is a story about a woman who decided to reach out to a hairdresser friend to do some touch-ups. You don't let them drink while they're doing it.
Oh, gosh.
This story, Emily Hunt, age 24, went to a former work colleague for a highlight touch-up and to just get some extensions put in. But her hairdresser had other ideas. Emily says her pal said yes and asked for just a small fee to cover the cost of hair dye and to sew in the hairpiece for the weave. Then everything got weird after that.
Oh, okay.
The hairdresser took over 4 hours to do the work, including washing her own hair while, quote, necking gin. Now, this is a British story that stands for downing heavy doses of gin.
Okay, I was a little worried for a second.
Yeah, no, gin is not somebody's name, and they were not necking. They were actually basically like doing shots of gin.
I got you. I'm with you.
Emily said it was the worst hairstyle of 2020, and knowing this year, that's saying something. And that her hair just summed up the year. Someone even commented on her post that if 2020 had a weave, this would be it.
Oh my gosh.
She said, quote, as she was leaving, I knew it was terrible. I just wanted to go upstairs and die. She was drunk when she did my hair. She got drunk drinking my gin, by the way. I think it was a combination of her being a bit drunk and not being very good at weaves. She said, I thought I was going to come round for a drink and say, yeah, we could have a drink if you want, and then we could do my hair another time. And then she went, no, we can have a drink and I'll do your hair. So trust me, it'll be fine. I'll be able to do it. That's 4 hours ago. I thought she'd have only one while she was doing it. I didn't expect it to get that bad. I bought this bottle of gin. She was drinking it more than I was. She had at least 4 or 5 glasses. I had only had 2. The next day when I looked in the mirror, I thought, I can't even go out looking like this. I tied it into a bobble very low on my head and tucked it under my coat and walked to a hairdresser. When I got out of the hairdresser's, I cried with relief that my hair was sorted. The woman, though, demanded that Emily pay for her service even after admitting that she was sure she'd done a terrible job. Now, apparently, the story is kind of written very poorly. She went to the person's employer where she works and said, look what your employee did, even though she did it off hours. And they said, oh, we'll fix that. Then turned around and wanted to charge her the full amount for fixing it. Now, Emily hated her hair even when she contacted the hair salon at 2 a.m., pleading for a last-minute appointment. So that's where we are. She just decided, I got to get this fixed. She went in. They said, sure, we'll fix that for you. And next thing you know, they want to charge her the full amount. And she's like, wait, what? But you got to do what you got to do when you let your drunk friend hang out with your hair.
It's no bullshit.
Wow. That is really stupid. You know, there are jobs that you might be able to get away with taking a nip from time to time. Haircutting ain't one of them.
Well, I love how it started off with, I didn't think it would take that long. 4 hours later.
Yeah, that's just kind of a disaster all the way around. Well, and I mean, unless you like, there's something about your hair, like, I mean, I understand, like, if you're getting your hair colored or something, that it's going to take a while, but 4 hours,
not 4 hours,
is like, you got to start questioning what's going on.
Right.
Oh man. All right. Well, I've got the next of our news stories here. Alan, you know, COVID has taken a toll on all of us, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We're all suffering. We all have to make concessions here. Well, the Whatcom County Council members have really got a problem going. This comes from KIRO, Channel 7, Seattle, Washington. Whatcom County, Washington is the dateline here. The Whatcom County Council, glad I got all that crap out of the way, had a very interesting interruption during an online budget hearing on Thursday. According to the Bellingham Herald, some council members have struggled with technological issues since the coronavirus pandemic made online meetings the norm. During Thursday's meeting, Councilmember Ben Ellenbass, who has dealt with numerous tech trials due to his internet connection at his farm near Ferndale, found the situation less than ideal, the Herald reported. Ellenbass took his laptop from the house to his barn in hopes of getting a stronger signal. During the meeting, the cows were heard whenever Ellenbass turned on his mic during the discussion. When Ellenbass called for action on a measure, his words were echoed with a loud moo. Councilmember Rudd Brown asked if Ellenbass had cows in his living room. Ellen Bass explained that the internet connection was better in the barn. Why in the hell it would be better in the barn, nobody knows. That's what happens when people in the 5th district elect a farmer, Ellen Bass said. So that is Whatcom County, Washington, now overrun with cows in their budget meeting.
It's no bullshit.
Yeah, I just love that. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Does anybody have a second? Okay, you just had to say yes.
The moos have it.
I keep thinking of that scene in Blazing Saddles in the bar when all the cattle are just milling around.
Oh yeah, and then through the movie theater, and that's a good Mel Brooks trope.
It's just how we conduct business here, so that's right. It is what it is. So,
well, and the funny thing is, they actually have the screenshot of the meeting, and so 5 of the council people you can tell are in their house. And then this one guy is obviously in his barn. So it's a great picture.
All right. Well, my story that I gave you has a part 2.
Uh-oh.
Remember the girl that had her hair done? Remember I said she called at 2 o'clock in the morning to get a new stylist, or get an emergency appointment?
Okay.
Well, a continuing piece said, look, this whole story, it started with once I got home, I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep all night. In fact, I kept waking up off and on. I decided at 2 o'clock in the morning, I needed to get in touch with the owner of the store and say, please, 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 you've got to get me an appointment. This is really important. When you see what your employee's done to me, you're going to laugh your head off. Honestly, it's that bad. Well, when they asked what was up with it, I just said, what's right with it? When I was sitting in the chair, she told the hairdresser, look, you'll see. Everyone's eyes then were popping out of their heads and their jaws were dropping when they saw that I had the worst weave ever. When the hairdresser got this to the second row, she actually stuck her finger in something and went, what was that? Turns out her friend, in her inebriated state the night before, had left a needle woven into her own head.
Oh, no.
She said, I couldn't believe it. What the hell? Where did that come from? I just remember thinking, oh my God, I could have stabbed myself in the head last night had I gone to bed. Emily reached out for a refund and got no response, so she posted it to Facebook. She said, quote, I shared the post because the woman who owned the shop was ignoring my messages. She then sent me a voice note saying, I'm sure I've done a really bad job. I'll come back on Wednesday and sort it out. Now, this is to her friend. I said I would be out and then asked her just give me a refund and then we'll be fine. She then started saying she would have to charge me £110, which is the standard price for all of the hair treatments, but then said I'll take $30 off the top to fix it. This is a friend of hers who already screwed it up.
Oh my gosh.
So she said I contacted her boss who said a message would be passed on, but mentioned it happened outside of work and there was nothing she herself could do to refund her the amount that her friend was asking. She said, quote, I won't be letting her do my hair again, and I've contacted the trading standards. I just want my money back. I also don't want anyone else going there and getting the same treatment.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
Oh, God.
Her friend, tell you what, I'll fix that for you. It's just going to cost you £110. But tell you what, you're a friend, and I know I screwed up. I'll take 30 pounds off the top.
Well, Alan, I was going to offer to come and work on your deck for you. I'll only charge you $5,000 for my work, and then it'll be an extra 15 for the repairs of my work. But
yeah, I've seen your work.
That sounds like a good deal for me.
Oh, this is just one of those stories where you just feel bad for the victim here who just thought she could trust her friend to do something after hours and got totally screwed every way that's possible.
Now, wait a minute. Let's put this in perspective. She was the one who brought the bottle, right?
Well, she did bring the gin. Yes, that is true.
I mean, you can't think
she was the enabler.
Well. Right. Yeah, I mean, like, that's not going to end the way you want it to.
That's not going to end the way you think it's going to.
It's going to end the way we think it's going to, not the way they.
Oh, gosh. All right. Let's get into what are we watching, what are we reading, and what are we listening to? And we'll start off with you, Walt, the watching streaming. What do you got?
All right. Well, I got hooked, and I'm still working my way through Enterprise. It's really good. If you've never sat down, if you're a Star Trek fan, you've never sat down and watched Enterprise, it is definitely worth watching. You do kind of get to a point where you're like, how many flashlights can we have on consecutive episodes? It seems like they had a great deal on Cave Rental or something, but it's a great show, great origin story for the Star Trek universe. The Mandalorian dropped another episode on Friday, and I got to tell you, man, week after week after week, it is awesome. And have you seen last week's episode?
Yes. Every Friday when I come home from high school football radio, where we cover the football games, I always have to unwind. Yeah, I came home and the first thing I did is like, time to get to Disney Plus and queue up episode 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as I got home from work Friday night, I was cooking dinner and started watching, and I had to pause it because I was like, I've got to concentrate on it. I've got to really be able to sit and focus.
Right. Possible spoiler alert. When I keep thinking back to the shows we've mentioned this season, I'm continuing my way through Longmire. And, Katie Sackhoff plays Lieutenant Moretti on Longmire. That's right. And earlier I said I suggested to you see Justified, which had Timothy Olyphant, right?
Yep.
Well, we get Timothy Olyphant in Mandalorian episode 1, and now we get Katie Sackhoff in episode 3. I'm like, Jesus, it's a reunion.
Yeah. And let me tell you, the character she plays is awesome.
Well, what I love about it was our main character, this Mandalorian, this whole idea of you can't take your helmet off, was that a more zealous version of the cult version of a Mandalore? And is this going to give him the excuse to now start being able to take his helmet off more?
Well, that's what I was wondering too, because it's like you kind of get introduced to a whole different universe of the Mandalorians and a whole different philosophy of what a Mandalorian is.
Oh, loved it. Loved it. Loved it. And, by the way, a spoiler for those folks who haven't seen Bosch yet, Bosch even shows up.
I was going to say,
Gulliver.
Yeah, Titus shows up. And as soon as he walked through the door, I was like, this is totally badass. Bosch is now on this. Like, my mind was blowing up. It is such a great episode. And there's one part in particular, Star Wars does a great job of having some subtle dark humor in it. And I love when the guy realizes where they have trapped the Mandalorians on the ship. And he's like, wait a minute. And then all of them get sucked out into space. They're like, good job. That's your own demise. Way to go.
Yeah, a very, very good episode. But if you've been a fan of listening to us during season 3 here, talking over and over and over about the shows we recommend, to have 3 of the repeated shows mentioned over and over, and then character actors or actors from those 3 shows all showing up so far in The Mandalorian, what more do you need to know?
Oh, it's great. I've said this before, and I'm probably not the only one saying it, but I'm getting more and more convinced that the people running The Mandalorian should be running the Star Wars universe. Like, they get it. They get what Star Wars is supposed to be in my mind.
Well, they also get storytelling. They get the idea that you can have humor, you can still have a heavy story, but you got to remember the humanity, and it doesn't have to be action nonstop. You can actually tell a good story.
Yeah, and it is a great story. I can't wait till this season is fully out. I'm going to finish watching it, and then I'm going to go back and start again at season 1, episode 1, and watch all the way through, because I know there's a lot that I'm missing, and it is just an awesome story.
Yeah, it's one of the best serial live action shows so far on television.
I have to agree. The final one I'll mention, I just started it today and early this morning, and somebody had recommended this to me, but I didn't realize who was in it. It's a show on Amazon Prime called Truth Seekers, and it's kind of like Ghost Hunter Debunkers is basically who it is. But it's Nick Frost, of course, Simon Pegg, because Nick Frost is in it, and Malcolm McDowell is also in it. So you got some, 3 big hitters right there. And I started watching for about 5 minutes. I was like, okay, you got me. I'm in. So it's called Truth Seekers on Amazon Prime. And I'll kind of report back the next couple weeks on how that's going.
Very cool. You've already mentioned 3 actors that already have me hooked to go watch it.
I know, that's how I was too. As soon as I saw they were in it, I was like, all right, you got me. I'm in.
I'm sold.
Yeah, I think Simon Pegg, I've said this before, I think he is one of the best talents in entertainment right now. He kind of does it all. Sci-fi, serious acting. He's a great comic actor. He kind of understands his audience and he knows how to play to them. And I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, all I have to add sorry, did I interrupt you? Do you have anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Okay. Then I'll add that I'm watching. Obviously, we mentioned The Mandalorian. I'm keeping up with you on that. Every Friday, I'm going to watch the episode that drops. I finally hit season 7 of Star Trek The Next Generation, so I'm winding my way through that one. Should be done hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then I do plan I was going to do DS9 and then go to Enterprise, but it sounds like, based on what you're saying, I may need to go ahead and just jump to Enterprise because I did miss pretty much the entire run of that show, only catching 1 or 2 here or there. So for me, it'll be completely fresh. We are also not only into, but now midway through Longmire season 4. The wife and I had a binge one night. We watched like about 5 episodes to get into season 4. It's Longmire season 4 has been the best season so far. Although I will tell you, as we wrapped up season 3, when Gerald McRaney was playing the dad of the deputy who was killed, the scene where the realization comes to both Longmire and Gerald McRaney's character that everything was about to go down was maybe one of the most just tense-filled conversations I've watched in a long time. So I've really liked how Longmire's finally, in my mind, getting a better sense of, you don't have to make every episode about solving a crime. You can continue to have longer stories, and it's really getting a lot better. So, I wasn't a fan of season 1. Season 2 was a little better. Season 3, I was like, oh, okay. Season 4 has been like, geez, this is awesome.
Yeah, and I liked it from the beginning, but you're right. Once you get into it, I think the characters are really, really well written. The storylines are solid. They carry through both a long storyline and shorter stories within. But the acting is just fantastic. I think that it's so well cast and a very, very well done show. And I always thought it was interesting that the town that they shot in was super supportive of the show, and they were ready to cancel it until the town stepped up and said, no, we can't cancel it. They've got one more season. They've got the story they got to finish. Mm-hmm. So it got picked up, I think, by Netflix, and that's where they finished it out. But yeah, I can't recommend that show highly enough. I loved it. I
mean, there are better shows. I think, like we talked about this earlier in the season, Bosch, to me, is maybe one of the single best episodic cop shows out there. But Longmire caught up a little bit. It really did close the gap to Bosch, because Bosch sets a pretty high bar.
I would agree. I think Bosch is really hard to beat. That is a very, very high bar. And I have recommended Bosch to probably 10 people recently who've been looking for something to watch. There's nothing bad to say about Bosch.
Nope. In fact, I did the same. And everyone that I've recommended it to has come back and said, oh my God, thank you so much for the recommendation.
Yeah, I've had the same thing.
Last thing I saw, last week I talked about having watched Infinity War, then the next night watching Endgame. My wife actually just said, hey, do you want to go back and watch the first Avengers movie? I was like, yeah, it's fine. We haven't seen that in a while. So we rewatched the first Avengers movie. It's amazing how you could have seen the same movies, for me, at least a dozen times, and you pick up on new things each time. It is such a good flick. And I have to remember that was the first really big final, here's this Marvel project, this idea. Can we really create this universe? And now it feels like, well, of course you can. Well, back then they didn't know it was even going to work. And to
I had no
introduce
idea.
Iron Man, introduce Thor, introduce the Hulk, introduce Captain America, and then try to find a way to make them all come together, but add a couple of more and make you feel like you didn't miss something. God, it is so good. I love Avengers. That is just a great, great fun movie.
It is. And, you know, when you look back, I think the thing that blows my mind the most about it is it all started with that Iron Man movie. And these were not your A characters. You know, these were not your Superman and Batman. These were characters that were a little obscure unless you were like us, you know, a hardcore comics fan. But they have created one of the greatest universes in movie history.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, my wife even said, we need to just go back and rewatch these all in order. Just again, we do this every now and then with other movie franchises, but this one, I mean, it's a 25 movie investment to go through the entire.
I was going to say, and some of them are 3 hours long. So you're talking 55, 60 hours of movies to watch.
Yeah. I told her, I said, you know what? The next time we get a good snow coming our way where we're stuck inside, as long as the power stays, let's just do it. We're going to binge. So
I agree, anyway, man. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah. That's all I got.
All right, cool. So you ready to move on to what we're listening to?
Unless you want to, are we skipping what we're reading? Because I don't have anything new.
I was going to say, let's skip that this week. I'm still finishing up what I've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. So.
All right. So
I have not been reading as much as I need to.
Let's go to, what are you listening to?
Yeah, I was trying to subtly slide by the intellectual part of our show. Damn you, Alan. People are going to see right through how stupid we are.
No, they're not. They don't.
No, they're well aware.
There's no smoke screen here, people. It's pretty clear.
Well, if they didn't know, when they heard us interview Shane Kimbrough, and half the time we're like, oh, cool. Because we didn't know what else to say.
We were like Beavis and Butthead, like, you were like in space and stuff.
Yeah, we had to edit out the parts of like, how'd you go to the bathroom?
He actually did comment on that, remember?
I know he did, didn't he? Isn't that funny? And the next morning when I was brushing my teeth, I kept thinking back to that thing where he was talking about they didn't train you how to brush your teeth, and you like had stuff going everywhere. I was like, I kind of have that too, and I'm not in zero gravity.
And I'm not even in space.
I'm just a bad human. So, all right, so
a bad human.
I'm just not good at being me. So the things I'm listening to, there's podcasts I think I've mentioned before, literally with Rob Lowe. I really like that show. Rob is a very good interviewer, and he gets a lot out of his guests. So if you're looking for just a good, celebrity interview kind of show, literally with Rob Lowe is really, really good. He's a great comic actor, but his compassion for people and, other really great things about him come out in that show. Also kind of on the other side of that is a great true crime podcast called Small Town Murder. And it's done by two comedians. And they even start out, look, if you think that murder and comedy don't go together, this is not the show for you. Because it is like they make fun of the police. They make fun of the people who did the murders. They do not make fun of the people who were the victims. But it is a really great show. It is not safe for work. It is not safe for children. But it is a great show. And then lastly, a while back, we talked about a podcast called Dr. Death. I don't know if you remember that. It profiled a guy who claimed to be a doctor. Well, he was a doctor, but he was a disaster, and he literally killed people on the operating table because he was so incompetent. And now I just saw today, season 2 just dropped. So I'm going to start on that this week. But if you have not listened to season 1 of Dr. Death, it is a must listen to. It is so good. I think it's done by Wondery, and they tend to be really, really solid. But it's well researched and put together in a way that is really super compelling. And I remember listening to it when I was on a road trip, and I think I listened to like 6 episodes back to back. It was so good. So check that out. It's called Dr. Death. Season 2 just dropped. Check out season 1. Super podcast.
Excellent. All right. Well, I've got a couple of things I've been listening to. Walt, I can't believe this. I never finished that 8-part episode of Wind of Change.
Oh, really?
I totally had forgotten. I was like, oh my God, I'd gotten 2 episodes in, and I just had, for whatever reason, I got onto other things, and then I started exploring other podcasts and picking up other things along the way, and then getting busy with work, and high school football came back up, and then my time felt like it was like, oh my God, I don't have time. So I decided while I was working on my wife's craft room, I said, I'm going to put this on. And I binged episode 2 through episode 8 while I was working all at once. And it was amazing.
It really is compelling.
I had no idea that in the final episode, they were actually going to sit down and interview the lead singer of the Scorpions and basically say, did you really write this?
Okay, so I've been meaning to go back and talk about this. I'm glad that you finished it up. Did that interview seem a little weird to you?
Yes. It felt exactly like the main host said. He imagined after he got off the phone or got done interviewing the former band manager that he must have picked up the phone and said, hey, there's these guys investigating this. Just giving you a heads up in case they give you a call.
I got the same feeling. And so if you're the lead singer of the Scorpions, this has been out there for a while. Like 20 years this rumor's been out there.
Right.
And you've never heard this rumor?
And you act like this is the first time in the history of this song that you've ever heard anybody say, did the CIA put you up to this, or did they write it and you took credit for it, or any variation of it? He acted like this was the first time, like 2020, this year, before the pandemic hit full, they were talking about this song in a hotel in Hanover, and he acted like, I never heard this before.
Right. I really have a hard time believing that.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that they were involved, that there was this real scheme. My theory on this is that they wrote the song, the song was put together. They probably innocently, wrote this great song. The CIA capitalized on that and pushed that song out into the Eastern Bloc as part of the propaganda campaign against the communists to help bring down the wall. That's my theory, is that the CIA just capitalized on that. However, when I heard that interview, I was like, wait a minute. That maybe there is more to this than just the CIA capitalizing on it, because that was not the answer that I would have expected him to give. If he really didn't know about this, the answer in my mind that I was expecting was, oh yeah, I've heard that rumor, but we weren't, that's all nonsense. That's
right.
A story.
No, it was actually more suspect for him to say, I've never heard this before.
Yeah, because his manager knew about it.
Right.
Like other people who had been on that trip knew about it. So how is that possible? Like, that is not the answer that he, should have given.
Not if he wanted to put it to bed.
No, not at all. And you and I both know intelligence well enough to know that they, whatever. You and I are not acquainted at all with intelligence, but some government things we're acquainted with, they use things like that. They'll capitalize on whatever they can for, a campaign like that. So the answer I was expecting from him, and I can't remember that lead singer's name now, but I really expected him just to go, yeah, we've heard that. That's just urban legend, and blow it off. But to get the polar opposite of that, oh no, well, I've never heard that rumor before. What a shock to me. That kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit.
Well, Klaus, lead singer Klaus Mina, he did not exactly put a cold blanket on the theory. In fact, if anything, it only made me think That's exactly what you should say if the CIA said, you better never say anything
Right.
about this.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right, folks, if you are brand new, you just happen to come in this episode, the podcast I'm talking about is a limited, it's sort of a 8-part miniseries documentary via podcast. A reporter basically had heard 10 years ago that a CIA agent had been told by someone else in the CIA that the song Wind of Change by the Scorpions was a CIA operation to help bring down the fall of the Soviet Union. And you may think that's the dumbest thing ever. Maybe you've heard that, but if you listen to this podcast, it is amazing. It is so well put together. I was enwrapped the whole time.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the reporter was told by someone who worked for the CIA that was kind of the word in-house, and so that's why he started looking into it. So it is fascinating, even for somebody like me who was like, nah, that's not how it works. The deeper we get into it, and when you actually start hearing from people in the CIA, you're like, oh yeah, no, that probably happened.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I want to figure out how I can be funded to go and do the kind of in-depth research that this guy was able to do. That was awesome.
That really was. I mean, very, very well done podcast. Kudos to that team that put that together.
All right. Let me, to wrap things up, I'll go through, I always do shout outs to the folks that, really are there for us and we're there for them. So I want to make sure that we try to give them a little bit of love. Of course, our good friends across the pond, 60MW podcast. I've got to give a good shout out to our good friends at the Real Queens of Queens, the Bad Cop Show, BK on the Air Escape Pod podcast, the Marine Corps Movie Minute podcast, their Golden Rage of Television, also Geek to Me Radio, the Indiana Jones Minute, which was still one of the best Movies by Minutes podcasts out there, Radio Labyrinth, a Gen X Not Safe for Work podcast that is just fantastic. Good friends Jason and Doug from the Rocky Minute, just really, really cool. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to the episode that I talked about last week that dropped on the Worst of the Best podcast, check that out. It was me and Ryan Robalkin talking about the Queensryche album Operation Mindcrime. So go on back, check that one out. Just good podcast right there, that whole list. If you're looking for stuff to listen to, that's a pretty eclectic list.
Yeah, it sure is. And Ryan is a great guy. He's got several podcasts out there. And if you're a Rocky fan, you definitely want to check his Rocky podcast. It's called the Sly Cast, right?
Well, the Sly Cast brings all those other...
all the Rocky...
all the other Stallone casts together. All right, that's going to do it for the entertainment segment. So the last thing we've got before we wrap this up, Walt, how do people learn a little bit more about us? Or if they want to contact us, ask us a question, or tell us what we got wrong, how do they do it?
Well, for all those, go to our website, thewilderride.com. And we were fortunate enough when we got cranked up that nobody else had the Wilder Ride anywhere. So if you're on anything, I guess, but Parler, we haven't set that one up yet. But any other social media or whatever, you can find us at The Wilder Ride. That includes Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/The Wilder Ride, you'll want to follow us there. And then a button's going to pop up with a little tag that says join our group. And that's our listeners group. That is the Wilder Ride listeners group. It's all entertainment, the Wilder Ride information, no politics, no nonsense, just good fun, good escapism, really, because you're not going to get any of that real world stuff, just fun entertainment. So join us over there. Again, thewilderride.com or facebook.com/thewilderride.
Take a moment to rate, review, and share, and come on back next week, because you never know who's going to be joining us right here in the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. Wow, geez. That was a good episode.
That was great. Melania is a trip, isn't she? MalaniKai.
And it's not Melania.
It's not Melania.
You're getting the first lady mixed up with the guest.
Well, she's a trip too, but MalaniKai, man,
MalaniKai.
Good grief. What is wrong with my brain? MalaniKai.
Well, we were talking for a little while. Actually, we weren't talking for a while at all.
No, she took a breath, and 33 minutes later,
we were able to ask a couple of questions in between.
But I would definitely not want to play her in a game of Force. I have a feeling she can still hit that long shot.
She's such a good player and just such a good inspiration for people that listen to her. She just worked hard